Dads, do you want a thriving business that doesn't control you? A passionate marriage and kids that adore you? Do you want to grow deeper in your faith? Be healthier, both physically and mentally? Build more meaningful relationships with your friends? Welcome to the Balanced Business Dad Podcast, where in each episode we dive into balancing and optimizing the 6 pillars of life: faith, health, marriage, fatherhood, brotherhood, and business. And here are your hosts, pioneers of the Balanced Business Dad movement, Dustin Hogue and RJ Campbell.
Hello, dads, and welcome to another episode of the Balanced Business Dad Podcast. I am your host, Dustin Hogue, and with me always is my friend, my colleague, my business partner, my senior, Mr. RJ Campbell. RJ, how are we doing today?
We're doing great today. Hello, gentlemen.
I am running out of adjectives of how to introduce RJ. I'm really going to have to look that up.
But he never leaves senior or old or one of those out. And I don't blame him.
I got to give them, if they can't see us, I got to make sure they understand the picture. So, guys, we are in for a treat today. We have with us a father, a husband, a business coach, an entrepreneur, somebody who has a lot of fun in life and lives life by design is what I think we're going to get out of this. And tons of tips and tricks on how to do that for ourselves. So guys, welcome to the episode, Jason Skeesick. Hope I pronounced that correctly.
Oh, you nailed it, Dustin. I thank you so much, Dustin and RJ, for having me on. First of all, I am just so grateful to not just be here and talk to you about something that's super important to me and that I'm passionate about, but also to get an opportunity to have my very first podcast with 2 hosts. So I'm excited to step all over you boys. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, let's just jump right into it. So we like to start, we talk about the life by design, and I think you have a lot of that. So we like to start where you are today and then how you got there. So Jason, let's just tell us, who you are, what you're all about, where you're from, all that fun stuff. Yeah,
so Jason Skeesick, I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I'm a serial entrepreneur, I guess is the term for it. I've had multiple businesses, 3 of which I've made exits from. So definitely can speak to service businesses and building tribe. This is stuff that I'm super passionate about. I'm most recently a father. As I mentioned earlier, I have a daughter, Lucy, who is about 19 months old. And so I just barely qualify to be a guest on the show, but I am going through the thick of it and really have applied a lot of the stuff from the military and a lot of the stuff from being an entrepreneur to trying to solve these new problems that my wife and I have faced by introducing an irrational third party into the mix.
And they are so irrational.
They are. It's interesting because it felt like we had gotten to this homeostasis as a couple where I'm super respectful and understanding of her and she's super respectful and understanding of me. And we were flying at cruising altitude and then we got a drunk passenger on the plane who just won't listen,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is fun.
Yeah.
We're going to jump into that.
Well, it doesn't change, by the way. Mine are grown and they're still drunk passengers on my plane.
So the only difference is RJ's now drunk with them.
Yeah, exactly. I start the day drunk. Now it's up to you guys to figure out how to get me off the plane.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's cool. So let's just jump right in kind of your entrepreneurial journey. First of all, thank you for, serving our country. Of course, we always appreciate our vets and, the new challenges that, a daughter will bring. But, let's talk about you previous to all of that and kind of how the journey started, especially in entrepreneurship to where you are today. Always love hearing that story.
Yeah. So if you look at me as a kid, statistically, I wasn't supposed to make it or whatever. I was removed from public school when I was in 1st grade. I spent time from 1st grade till 7th grade in a private behavior disorder school for kids with ADD who just couldn't shut up and stop asking questions in class. Oh, and kids that were suicidal or violent or in gangs and all this other stuff. So I was in an environment that was very unique with a lot of kind of varied experiences. But the one thing that really held it together for me was I had teachers who really cared about me and who let me work in my own pace as well as by my own incentives. And so as a result of that, I always was drawn towards things that I was passionate about and would pour myself into science or math on my own terms. But it was very difficult for me to do things on other people's terms. And while that was very challenging for my mother and even for me when I was young, I am so thankful now. Throughout my whole young life, I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I think I think I was probably just arrogant enough to think that I would be successful and had never really explored what that meant. But looking back, I was into snowboarding. I worked at the snowboarding hill. I was into cars. I worked at the shop. I was into clothing. I worked at the mall. I always was finding things that I was curious about or interested in and really digging deep and trying to trying to make that thing into a way for me to make money or be doing day to day. And so cut to when I eventually did become an entrepreneur, it was running a CrossFit gym, which I was super passionate about. And even now it's working with entrepreneurs and building a tribe around a mastermind and a course for entrepreneurs that I just could not possibly be more passionate about than I am. So I've always pursued those things that I was passionate about. I've just now become better at being a shepherd of my own attention span so that the things that I get super interested in and dive into are also the things that are the virtuous thing that are going to, provide for my family and grow, meaningful impact on the world.
Love that. Man, that's
wow.
So many things to take from that. So let's talk about kind of, one of the things that I love, I'm reading, kind of a bio here, but our show is where military mindset meets the spirit of the puppy. I absolutely love that and everything about that. So, but let's elaborate on that a little bit. What does that mean to you in the military mindset with a spirit of a puppy?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I was born with this one core value, which is spirit of the puppy. And that's like high energy, loves to try new things. I'm climbing trees. We're setting fires. We're having a great time. If you walked into my gym and I was in the very back of it, hey, what's going on? I'm coming up to give you a big hug. That's just me. I'm a big puppy dog. But it wasn't until I joined the United States Army that I found purpose and discipline and the willingness to go the extra mile for the people that are counting on me and the idea of not making covenants with myself unless I was willing to make sure that I didn't break them. And so that's what I call military mindset. And that's the second of my 5 core values. Well, those two things come together, and there's a whole story behind it, but those two things come together to create the symbol on my hat, which is spear and clover. And so I have that tattooed on my body. I have that on all my stuff. My companies are called Spear and Clover now. But years before that, it was my personal ethic. It was this concept that not only am I happiest when I'm out there working hard, pursuing my goals, but also when I take the time to enjoy the puppy life, to pursue my passions, to pick up hobbies, to learn new things and read books and listen to podcasts. And it's at my best when I'm doing both the military mindset part of myself as well as balancing that with spirit of the puppy.
So is that spear and clover?
Spear and clover. Together? That is exactly right. And that's the name of the podcast. It's the name of the mastermind as well as the website.
I love that. So you've said a couple times now core values, and I've been in a lot of businesses who have core values. We've worked on them in our company and stuff like that. But I would love to hear the other 3, if you don't mind sharing, as well as most people don't live their life on a set of core values. So when did that come about? Why did it come about? And how did you implement it?
So if you ever, and if you're listening to this and you have core values, good for you. That's better. You're ahead of most people. But ultimately, you've always lived by your core values. You don't have a choice. Right. Your core values are who you are. They're what you showed up to the dance with. They're not who you wish you were. They're not who you want to one day become. They are who you are. And so the job that I help people to go through is not to decide which of IBM or McDonald's or Apple's core values would most serve the business that they're creating. Much more, it's to ask the questions that will ultimately reveal the embers that are already burning in your chest. Right? That got you to where you are. It's who you show up as no matter what. And so it's important that we do the work that is required to do that. And this is very commonly done. You can read books like Traction for this. There's certainly other resources to teach you how to develop core values. But one thing that I think is unique to my process is I think most people's core values describe them. And that's it. And so you have 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5 different things that are essentially just describing you. And so we can figure out who is Coach Dustin, who is RJ, right? What we do is we try to make that a little more 3-dimensional by solving 4 things with our core values. So one of them is who we are. And so for me, that's spirit of the puppy meets military mindset. Easy. The second is how do we do work? For me, that's head up, feet moving, which means I'm not a sit and plan and then take action guy. I'm a build the plane while it's flying guy. So I'm working towards my goals, but I'm also kind of up and paying attention to the changing environment as we do it. The third is how I communicate with others. This is huge and something that most people don't cover in their core values or in their business. And so for me, that's tribal. I'm a CrossFit gym owner. I'm an Army guy. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. Now I'm a mastermind guy. And so this is all about tribe. It's all about bringing people together with shared ethics, shared language, shared outfits, man. It's so shocking how many people I get along with where when they show up, they've got a go fast, don't die hat on, or they've got a, lions not sheep shirt on or something like that. And I'm like, okay, we're going to get along, or an Origin hoodie or something. And then finally, the last one is what gets me out of bed in the morning? Why am I doing this? Why are the people I work with doing this? And for me, that word is invested. I'm invested in myself. I'm invested in my family and my friends. I'm invested in my business, my clients, my employees, and our impact on the world. And so those are my 5 core values, but ultimately, that shouldn't even begin to inform what yours are. And so that's much more about selling questions than it is about selling answers.
Love that. Guys, those are something to really take into your personal life, your business life, but ask yourself those questions and really reflect on those answers that you're going to come up with, and then go back and ask them again, and then go back and ask them again, because I love that. That is huge there. You've mentioned a couple times the word mastermind, and I've been involved in a lot of masterminds, and it's hands down has gotten me where I am today. The success I've had, the relationships I've had, everything like that. I would say, besides from God, it has came a lot from these masterminds, right? And it didn't happen until much, much later in life. Not as later as RJ, but much later in my life. But so, it was so funny. This week, I just got back from Austin, Texas, because I was on a mastermind trip, and I was talking to my aunt and uncle who were actually in town from California. We live in the Midwest, so we know they're a little bit different. And they had no idea. They're like, that has to be so powerful to sit in a room with people who you're kind of doing life with, but that will call you out on your BS. Like, last time we talked, you said you really wanted to do this, and now you're not even talking about that again. So did you give up, or what happened? They're really calling you out on that. I love the idea and the concept of a mastermind. And, I've paid a lot of money to be in masterminds, and continually will do that. But I'd love to hear about your masterminds, or how masterminds have affected your life, and kind of why you went down that path.
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of different nails on the head right there. I mean, for starters, my friend Scott Ferguson, who you guys may have met at some point, he believes in the plus equals minus method, which is the plus, you always should have a mentor, somebody who's further down the path than you, that you can model yourself after, or ask questions, or aspire to become like. Equals having a group of peers that are going through life or business at a similar level to you, but have different perspectives. This is how we work through problems together. We support each other. And like Dustin said, we hold each other accountable. Not in a negative way, but hey, man, I talked to you 3 months ago and you said you were doing this, and it seems like you didn't do any of that. What's up? And knowing that is such excellent fuel. And then finally, minus, reaching back behind us on the path to help other people that want to be where we are. And the reason I say that is knowledge, you guys, is having an understanding of how to do something from one angle. But wisdom is when you have to take it and look at it from all the different angles and perspectives that are required to teach or coach something to somebody. And so if you want to get better faster, you should always have somebody that you're at least one person that you're modeling after your plus. You should always have people that are at a similar level to you, where you're looking at all these different perspectives and you're helping each other out through service. And you should always have somebody below you that you're teaching concepts that you know, so that you can gain wisdom at a much faster rate.
Love that.
Dang, that's good.
Yeah, it's real good.
I'd pay for that.
I'm charging for it, RJ, so come on over, buddy.
Love that. That's awesome. So you went from a lot of entrepreneurship. You started a CrossFit gym. You're still running the CrossFit gym, right?
I sold the CrossFit gym primarily about 2 years ago during COVID when I moved out of state. So I still have a small percentage of it, but it's being run by my brother from another mother, Andrew Westcott. He's doing a great job, awesome. Administering that tribe. Yeah.
Awesome. How did you get into the coaching the entrepreneurs? Because there's no doubt in my mind, based on talking to you, that you were born for it. But where did that come from?
Thanks, man. It's funny. I think there's a cycle. If you're in fitness, there's a podcast called Barbell Shrugged, and there's a guy on that show named Doug Larson. And Doug told me in my very first mastermind, believe it or not, he told me about this cycle of fitness. And I think it goes a cycle of life. And so it's like you find fitness, it changes your life. And so you start to talk about it. And then you, out of your garage, maybe you help 3 or 4 or maybe 10 friends by teaching them. And then at a certain point, you have to start charging for it, and you start a gym. And at a certain point, other gym owners go, wow, how did you build this this gym, and then you start to coach those other gym owners. And
Yeah.
so that's the path that I went down. I was very fortunate to be one of the very early clients of a guy named Alex Hormozy, who owns a company called Gym Launch.
Yes.
And
wrote a great book.
I'm in that book.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, one of them. And that's a sword is from Alex. Neither here nor there. Alex is a generational talent. He's brilliant. He is changing the world in his space. But that's not what this is about. What this was about was, for me, learning this stuff changed my life. And all of a sudden, my tribe that I couldn't get to grow beyond 100 or 150 people is 400 or 500 people big. And I'm making a real meaningful impact. And my reviews are going from 3 or 4 sentences to 3 or 4 paragraphs. Mm. And so we're actually making a big difference. And so I was tapped on the shoulder at that time to start helping other gym owners to create similar change as a coach. So I coached within that organization for a period of time. Decided to not become a full-time employee of anybody, because at this point that's not even possible. And so at a certain point I decided to strike it out on my own and started a company that helped other brick and mortar gym owners. Did that for 2 years. I sold that business about 1.5 years ago, took a mini retirement, and then now am administering to entrepreneurs at large. And so the reason that I knew was the very first time I got on a call with an entrepreneur, I just knew that I'd be doing it forever. I get so much energy out of it.
Yes.
I love. Like I call myself an entrepreneurial evangelist. I am so much the cheerleader for the things that have made my life better. And I just continue to bring that to every single day now.
Love that. What a great answer, and what a great journey you've had for that, because somebody saw that and you saw it and you took the action for it, right? Yeah. That's what I love, is you felt it and then you took action for it. So that's the great stuff, right? There's unbalance. We talk about that a lot, right? That there's unbalance sometimes that we have while we're going through these journeys of growth. And what we have found that really help the other business dads out there is us kind of elaborating on some of those challenges to let the other dads out there know that they're not the only one with challenges in business, and B, how did we get out of that? How did we bring back that order, that balance to our life? So we'd love to hear a story of kind of how that happened. What did you do to get out of it? And, to make sure you don't go down that path again.
Well, for starters, I think like anything else, it's all about planning. As grownups, if we're capable of solving problems and going through life as adults, then the only thing that really can throw us off usually is when we compress time. Right? This is why somebody cutting you off in traffic can send you off when you wouldn't have that happen if you bumped into them walking down the street, right? And so for me, what I found is if I just let business and life and fatherhood happen, well, fires will fill up my calendar. They'll fill up my day. They'll fill up my week. And pretty soon I'm not who I wanted to be. And I had to do this and I had to do that. And, oh, you don't know my life, bro. And like all that nonsense. And so when I started this business, I was incredibly deliberate and have not yet really broken it. I've been a little flexible through this launch, but of starting with a perfect week calendar, which is just a blank calendar, and starting by scheduling in my non-negotiables, which is time with my family, time with my wife and daughter, which is me going to do jujitsu and kickboxing 3 or 4 days a week. I block off 4. I typically end up going 3. And then my calendar is only available. I live off my calendar. My calendar is only available in the time that's left over. And so that's approximately 20 or 25 hours of work per week that I allot. And what I've found, Dustin, is that when I take away the pint glass and put in place a shot glass, I pour so much more effectively and so much more efficiently into that smaller vessel.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Guys, that's all about planning, right? I've coached a lot of people, and one of the things that we talked about, the more structured you are, the more freedom you have, right? And people want to be like, well, I get into this I coach a lot of real estate people. I get into real estate for freedom. Cool. Be structured around that, and you're going to have that freedom. But if you're not, then there's nothing, because every hour is a working hour, right? So I love that.
And every hour just fills and fills and fills with crap.
Yeah.
That's something we talk about the gas principle of physics, that any gas will expand to fill its container.
Yeah.
So if you put your time container out there and it's huge, guess what? It's just going to get filled with crap. This also applies to men's garages, by the way. The bigger the garage, you just have more crap. But that's good.
I got 4 cars in the other side of this house that would agree.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, love that. So that is one of the things that I think one of the biggest takeaways from here, guys, is make sure that you're planning this life, your business. And what he said first is this perfect week, it didn't start with work, right? When we talk about being the balanced business dad, it's talking about being the modern man, not giving your masculinity away. That's very important, right? But it's talking about being this man. It's being balanced to make sure that you're focusing on these right pillars. And he talked about, I focus on my wife. I focus on my daughter. I focus on my health in the jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. So I love that. This is good stuff.
One thing I would say is I think it's easy to hear this story. And I hear this feedback from my clients and my friends. And they're like, oh, well, you had 2 exits and then you had this time off. And so you were able to start fresh, you know, and with this knowledge and with this discipline. And so I want to just provide color for what I did previously, which had the same result, which is my calendar is totally full. I'm slammed. I'm running the gym. I have 15 employees. I have 350 plus clients, and I'm also trying to do other stuff on the side and be there for my wife and my dogs at the time. And what I did then, and what you can do now, is you start with a time study. You start by writing down for 2 weeks what you're doing in 15-minute increments. And I prefer we do it on pen and paper. It just makes it easier. You carry it around in your pocket. It's a pain in the ass, but it's really effective. And then you look at that after that time and you separate that time into strategic versus tactical, family, and then like personal, and then maybe sleep, right? And what you find is it's shocking how obvious it jumps off the page at you, where you're like, wow, I'm spending 8 hours a day doing things that do not move me towards my goals. And I'm spending 15 minutes a day or an hour a day doing the things that do. And once you measure it, you can move it. And so what I try to help people to do is to really paint the picture. Once you know what you're doing, paint the picture of what you want your life to be like, paint the picture of what it looks like at the top of the mountain. And now it's easy. All you do is you never take a step that leads you away from that mountaintop. Wow. And if you really do take it that simply, you'll be shocked how quickly your actual life is your perfect life.
Yes, man, I love that. You know, we talk about that in the dad up framework. When it's time to dad up, there's a framework that we put together for that. And the A is analyze the gap. Where do I want to be and where am I? Because you cannot figure that out. You cannot get to where you want to be unless you figure out where you are first. So I love that. And it's funny because I've coached a lot of real estate agents and I've called that what's a daily activity record, right? Which almost looks like an old Franklin planner, and you're writing it down. Hey, this is what I did. Not what am I supposed to do, but this is what I did. Because how many of us have came home tired, exhausted? We've had a busy day and our spouse is like, oh, well, what'd you do today? And you can't answer. I was busy, damn it. That's all I know.
Busy all day doing stuff.
Right. So it brings so much clarity to that. So I could not agree more with that. Make sure that we're taking account of your time, right? That's huge. So man, there's so much out of this that I love. So what I would say to close this out with, Jason, what is the one thing or maybe 2 things that I have, my question for you, and then RJ will always jump in with some other questions, but that you would tell the dads right now that they should be doing in life, the business dads?
Yeah, I think number one, probably taking time for yourself. It's probably, in particular, moms do this badly, but I think dads do too. I think there's this idea that somehow we need to just be the guy that breaks through brick walls every single day, that wears all the hats, that has magic trapped between our ears, and babe, you don't understand. Nobody else can do what I do. This is all nonsense. This is crap. And so once you get to a certain point, it's that behavior that gets you to that point. Maybe you have a decent business and you're cash flowing pretty well, but it's actually that behavior that's stopping you from getting to the next level, which is putting that stuff down, starting to energize to a team, starting to delegate, starting to actually become an entrepreneur instead of just self-employed.
Love that.
Yeah, you talk about finding that, what is your vision? What is your goal? What's that big object that you're looking for? And just don't take a path that goes anywhere other than for that. Mm-hmm. But how do you get people there other than, that's pretty simple. I wrote that one on a pamphlet. So there's got to be, how do you get people to take that action, go that direction, not start following shiny objects left and right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just ruthless introspection or mentorship and masterminding and things like that. I think it'd be pretty easy for me to imagine somebody who has shiny object syndrome, who, by the way, that's me, that's probably both of you guys, that's most entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur that's a shiny coin on one side, the dirty side of that coin is that you know that you have this magic power. You can wave your wand and something is created, right? Entrepreneurs are the people who see the world as it could be and they can't help but take action. Well, mature entrepreneurs that actually get stuff done, they can help but take things action. And so I always say to people, when I enlisted in the Army, there was a million times I wish I would have gotten out of there over that next 4 years, but I couldn't because I had enlisted in that thing. And so what I say is, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to actually make an impact on the world, you need to enlist in your ideas and see them through until they are energized at their best level. And the nice thing about things like mentorship and masterminding is we're always looking at these things from different angles, which means ultimately it's never really done. And so you get to a point where it's like, okay, this is done enough and it's energizing itself. And maybe there's a team involved where now I can move on to something else. But you only get there by standing up to scrutiny. So you need to either be asking yourself those difficult questions, you need to either be having a mentor who's asking you those questions, or peers who are asking you those questions. Even your 10-year-old child, if you asked them, would say like, Daddy, isn't it hard to run a plumbing business and a roller rink and also to take people on excursions to Costa Rica? And you'd be like, yeah. Well, Daddy, that seems like it would be really hard to do any of those things well. This is obvious on its face. We are intentionally blind to these ridiculous behaviors that we do as entrepreneurs.
Intentionally blind. I like that.
Yeah, that was the big thing. That's just the one thing that I noticed is talk about is, how do you coach to focus to stay online, to build that path and put them on it and keep them on it?
Yeah, I think for me, I sell questions. I mentioned this earlier, but I don't sell answers. And I never get sick of asking questions, because if you have a big, hairy goal that's going to result in you being the next Elon Musk, man, you better believe I want to hear about it. So I start to ask these questions, and obviously more often than not, they end up breaking down 3 or 4 questions in. But if they don't, even better. But I'm going to ask those questions. And so when you come to me and I say, what are your goals? And you say, I want to make $100 million and drive this Bugatti and live in this house. Well, for starters, I already know that you probably haven't really thought that out. But now I can start to scrutinize. Great. Are we going to sell one $100 million product? Are we going to become global personalities? Are we going to create a manufacturing concern? Like, how are we going to get there? Let's start to build the scaffolding that leads us to the top of this tower that you just described. And if you can't do it, that's okay. Now we need to either, we have our ethic, this is what we want, and we have our behavior. If those 2 things aren't aligned, there's only 1 of 3 options. I can reduce my ethic, I can increase my behavior, or I can find some combination of the 2. But what doesn't stand with me is like, I'm just going to do it. You don't know me, bro. I'm built different. Get the F out of here with that. I don't know if you guys swear on your show, but yeah.
I'm Nike. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, right. I mean,
whatever. I'll just do it. Yeah, it's funny you say that. So Dustin and I have a number of, we have some businesses together. So there's some days we're working out of the same offices, and I'm not a coach. Dustin is a coach. And so I'll listen to him doing multiple coaching, multiple coaching calls during the day. And I'm just, astounded, because I'll even ask him afterwards, or, now you understand coaching. It's like, all you do is ask questions and just delve deeper and deeper and deeper. I never having had a coach, but now just seeing it from the outside, I always thought, oh, your coach tells you what to do. Just like a coach in sports that might tell you how to run a route. I'm like, that's never the idea. You're not telling them anything. You're just asking them question after question, and they're revealing it. They're getting to where it is, which makes sense now that people aren't going to come to you and say, I want to make $1 million. What should I do? It's like, I don't know what the hell you're interested in. Let's talk about that. Yeah. So it's a great, just listening to you guys do that and ask questions and dig deep. It's great to witness. It really is. It's pretty cool. It's a gift as a coach. People that just say, oh, I could be a coach. I'm like, let's see it in action.
Yeah. I mean, and I think I don't know if anybody can be a coach or not. I wouldn't venture to guess, but I will say that intellectual curiosity and intellectual honesty go hand in hand, and they're very important if you want to be a virtuous example of whatever you are. And so that means that if I'm a jiu-jitsu practitioner, I'm trying to choke you or to tap you with an armbar. And guess what? I'm going to find out the truth. Either I'm going to choke you and you're going to tap, or I'm not, but I have to be willing to face reality in its form. And so that means that as a coach, I'm not going to be able to tell you and change your behavior. You're an entrepreneur in our case, right? You're an entrepreneur, which means you have a pretty strong point of view. So what I'm going to have to do is illuminate for you the scales as I see them and guide you to where maybe you need to get based on your own terms by asking the questions which will illuminate those things for you. And so for instance, if you said, I'm going to be a bodybuilding champion, and I said, great, what's your diet like? I have ice cream every day. I'm going to say, okay, and so in your experience, have you met many bodybuilding champions that eat ice cream every day? No, I haven't, but I'm going to be the first. Okay, great. That's awesome too. Describe to me exactly what's different about you than the myriad other people who have tried and failed to take this path. Well, I'll tell you what, my grandfather, you see what I mean? And so we get very quickly to determine, are we being intellectually honest or are we blowing smoke? And if we're blowing smoke, that's on you, man. I can't help that.
Love this.
Intellectually honest. I love that one too.
Yeah. So Jason, where can people find you? What kind of passion project you're working on? I mean, it sounds like the mastermind and the podcast. So where can people find you right now?
Yeah. So for starters, if you're still listening to this show, it's because you love what RJ and Dustin are doing here. I think these guys are doing awesome stuff. So first, like, share, and subscribe to this show. I think there's a ton of value that you're getting for free every single time they post. If you still have energy left, I would love to invite you to come to spearandclover.com, where you can register to take a free test drive of our mastermind. We also give you a free course along with that free test drive to see exactly what it is we're giving to entrepreneurs. And then on top of that, just because we talked about the perfect week calendar, if you go to my Instagram, Jason Skeesick, or Spear and Clover, you can get a copy of our perfect week calendar, and you can design that for your own perfect week.
Love that, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you're doing. The impact you're making on the world is such a huge thing. I know the dads that are listening out here will get such value out of this. Guys, our goal is to bring you value on every single episode and everything that we're doing here. You know, the goal of the Balanced Business Dad is to let us be modern men without giving up our masculinity. You know, that is something that's been big here. We know that it's time to dad up and just be better every day. Our goal is to be better tomorrow than we are today and keep that going. We have a lot of things coming down the pipe. One is the Dad Up Council, which you can go to dadupcouncil.com. That's our form of the mastermind, where we are getting together a few times a month. And, you know, we go over what we need in these pillars of life that we talk about. We also have our second retreat, the Balanced Business Dad Retreat, coming up, which is going to be in the first weekend of May in beautiful Lesterville, Missouri, a town of about 500 people. But it's a campground down there that we have, it's all men, all dads, all business dads that get together to do life, and where we get to be real and transparent in a safe space with one another. And lives will be changed there. So be on the lookout for that. And RJ, just close us out.
Yeah, that's it. Well, Jason closed it out for me. It was beautiful. We say that every time, guys. Thanks for listening. This podcast is, it's our gift to the dads out there and the business dads. And like Jason said, rate and review it. That's the biggest thing you can do to help us out. It gets the podcast shown in more places, and people can find it and can listen to great conversations like this. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much. We'll see you on next week's episode. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.